Abreu signing with the Houston Astros, but you can't go out and sign every free agent. You got to build from within. You got to have a great farm system. And the Astros farm system is, but it still seems to bring some talent. And we have Lindsay Crosby on the show today to talk about some highlights, some all-stars, and some names to watch in the Astros minor league system. And we'll talk about this on a special edition of the Locked On Astros podcast.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Huysman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talk Stros. Find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can I find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse. They can find me at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. They can find me on TikTok. And just know, always positive, always Stros.
All right. I'm sure you've seen that M&M's commercial where the M&Ms see Santa and Santa sees the M&Ms, the talking M&Ms, and they say, well, they do exist. Well, this is the first time I've actually done a show with Lindsay Crosby. He's he's the host of the Locked On MLB Prospects. He does a great job over there. He normally does it when Brett's there. So where can you find you and your podcast?
I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. My show, Locked On MLB Prospects, is available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at Locked On Farm. And if you have questions for the mailbag, at Locked On MLB Prospects at gmail.com. We do those mailbags every single Monday.
All righty. So, guys, if you go ahead and make the Locked On Astros podcast your first listen every day, whether it's on YouTube, keep on subscribing to us. We like those numbers going up, and go ahead and give us a big fat like while you're at it. And if you want to, go ahead and listen to the Locked On MLB Prospect podcast afterwards, and go and listen to both podcasts on Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Go and check out both podcasts because we both honestly put a lot of work into both of the podcasts. So thank you for supporting us through the 2022 season and beyond, because this is off season. We talk off season, and I know we don't get a chance to do this a lot during the regular season, but this is a perfect time to sit down and kind of look at the state of the Astros farm system. I know that there's a lot of people that say, yeah, the Astros are at the bottom of the barrel, but they've been consistently winning, and they've been trading away some quality prospects to get some players to help them win. So what's your overall, if you're one of these big rankers, where would you rank the Astros farm system right now?
So the Astros farm system to me is probably in the bottom half of the rankings, but it's for a good reason, right? You've promoted players like a Jeremy Pena. You have made trades, and you won a World Series. You played in 2 straight World Series. So you have used the prospect capital in the way that it should be used. And there's so many teams that are afraid to make the strategic trades of prospects. And the Astros haven't been afraid to step out and say, hey, we need to supplement. We need to make a trade. We're going to ship out a Jake Odorizzi. We're going to ship out a Jose Siri. We're going to make a trade to make our team better.
Right.
And so obviously it brought the Astros a World Series championship. Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, it's been a great season. And to see the guys come up at the end of the year and help out. I mean, David Hensley being hit by a pitch and being on base and having a key part in a playoff game. Having Corey Lee come up and help out throughout the season. You know, he didn't really pan out, I think, the way that they wanted him to, and he's one of the guys we're going to discuss. But towards the end of the season, now we have our 40-man roster kind of shaping up. We have 5 spots still to fill, but JP France is one of those guys that is really, he's got a lot of promise. And with this roster, though, you know, Eric and I spent 30-something minutes last night talking about the lineup. And I was like, Eric, we haven't even got to the pitching yet. And we've got guys like Peter Mashinsky. I mean, I keep calling him Peter. Parker Mashinsky. And if he ever comes on the show, if I call him that, he'll probably never show back up. But Parker Mashinsky, we've got Anoli Paredes, who has kind of had a rejuvenation, has done a lot better in AAA. Hopefully he's got the control down. And then we've got all these anomalies, all these, questions. Forrest Whitley, when will he break through? Corey Julks, if he doesn't get drafted and he stays around, will they put him on at some point? So, Lindsay, for a farm club, for a club that has a farm system that's in the bottom half, we actually still have a lot more, I think, probable guys, guys that you look into the future, the Meltons, the Gilberts, Colin Barber, guys like that really, Dustin Jordan, who's making a huge impact right now and turning heads. So let's just talk about this. We want to talk about movers and shakers in this organization.
Yeah, and the good thing is the top end talent is very good, right? And the Astros, more so than a lot of other teams, I really feel good about the development. And so a guy who might be a coin flip in another organization here is 65% likely to make it versus a 50 because of the quality of development of both pitchers and hitters. Look at a guy like a Hunter Brown. I mean, comes up, doesn't get, plays in 7 games to end the season, and then goes into the playoffs, doesn't give up a run in the playoffs. And it's like he might be your 5th or 6th starter next year. It's just something where going out, identifying the right types of tools and the right skills that these guys have, and then knowing what you're good at as far as development and turning them into useful big leaguers. Look at Jeremy Pena. I mean, great example of a guy that you build him, you develop him, and when he's ready, you bring him out, and he started shortstop all season, replaces Carlos Correa seamlessly.
And,
what I've always told Brett is that the Astros for the past few years have not had the sexy players, the top 100. I mean, I know that Hunter Brown technically was, and Corey Lee was technically, but they don't have like the top 20 like some of the teams do. But even those top 20 prospects don't always click. What was the guy? I can't think of the name with the Mariners, the guy that was supposed to be a can't miss guy, but came up and kept on striking out left and right. He did play in the playoffs this last year, but they don't always hit in
Jared
the big
Kalinick,
leagues. Yeah. Koenig, that's right. So definitely the Astros just seem to be lucky with finding the right players at the right time, whether it be Christian Javier, Framber Valdez, Luis Garcia, and they just have this knack of doing it, whether that's just the scouting department or just the player development or something. So looking ahead, somebody mentioned Corey Julks. Is he the most likely guy to be drafted in the Rule 5 draft?
It feels like he is, and it's a situation where he's had enough time at a higher level in the minors where you feel comfortable that he could make it for an entire season. I mean, it's a position player is harder to go in the Rule 5 draft than a pitcher, simply because it's so much harder to hide a position player. So there's a caveat on that. But if you were to take somebody, he's got enough versatility. He can play a couple different places. He has at least enough time at AA where you have a better idea of what he projects out to do. So there's a threat there. I still think a position player is likely to probably get skipped over, especially because he doesn't spend a ton of time at AA. I think he had maybe 10 games or so. And so it's just enough time where I don't quite think you're going to see him taken in the Rule 5 draft. But the tools are there. The potential's there. The reasons are there why you would want to take him.
Now, is his age one of the main factors, that he's 27, that he's a little bit long in the tooth? You saw Stone Garrett finally break through, and Stone Garrett had moved from organization to organization, and he actually rose and fell. And when he got in the Diamondbacks organization, whatever they did with him, man, I don't know if it's just they're that thin in their farm system, or if they were able to develop some tools. He is a local kid from Sugar Land area. So are we looking at the same kind of thing with Corey Julks, where he kind of is behind the 8 ball because of his age? He's in his late 20s now.
Yeah, and to me, missing the 2020 season impacted him a little bit more than a lot of other guys, simply because of the profile coming out of college. I mean, he goes to Houston, and then come out of there, even at Houston, he plays third, he plays left, he plays second. I mean, he's moving around a lot, and he's never really had that consistency, and then he loses a full season. I absolutely think that given his age, he's at the point where he's not valued by a lot of teams in their models, but a team that is good at figuring out, oh, this is the mistake he's making. This is the one flaw. If we fix this, he'll pan out. That's an organization that could take him and say, look what he did at AAA Sugarland, we did at Corpus Christi. We can make this work at the big league level. So he's got traits and he's close to it.
Yeah, definitely. And, right now we feel safe and we feel good about Lindsay Crosby's analysis of the minor leagues because he is the minor league encyclopedia. And so when I talk about safety, when I talk about SimpliSafe, I want to talk to y'all about the best alarm system that's out there. Right now, securing your home is really a big need because it's the holidays. And in the holidays, property crimes go up. Unfortunately, burglaries and package theft spike nationally. But SimpliSafe Home Security, they're offering right now 50% off their award-winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your SimpliSafe system for half off today and enjoy an advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. It's the only alarm that I trust, and we use it in our home. I love the technology. I feel this amazing support from 24/7 support operators that are there. And what's cool is you have an app on your phone. You can get a crystal clear HD image of what's going on. They'll alert the authorities and they'll let you know whether the threat is something that is really dangerous or it's just a cat, that is crossing in front of your camera. So you won't have to run home every time the alarm sounds or the motion detector is sensed. The authorities will be alerted when it's needed. So not only that, this company was rated the best home security system of 2022. It's the third year in a row by US and World News. So go check it out. Right now, I need y'all to go to SimpliSafe.com and you need to get their new system today. You get 50% off. Go to SimpliSafe.com/LockedOnMLB to get that 50% off. It's less than half the price of ADT's traditionally, professionally installed system. Go get it because there's no safe like SimpliSafe.
All right. So if you look at the Astros minor league players of the year, I believe Hunter Brown won the pitcher of the year, and Yainer Diaz was the hitter of the year, if I remember correctly. But Yainer Diaz is definitely one of the top hitters. I don't know if he profiles more at the catcher or if he profiles more as a DH or some other position. But I do want to kind of start looking at the Astros farm system player by player. So let's go ahead and start with maybe Corey Lee and Yainer Diaz. What can they offer the Astros maybe as soon as this next season?
So good 1-2 punch, right? But both of these guys have things that we've got to work on. So like Diaz first. The thing that I love about Yainer Diaz is he's so good at making contact. The thing that I don't love about Yainer Diaz is he's so good at making contact. Because what happens is it's a pitch selection issue, but the quality of contact isn't always there because he's so good at putting a bat on a ball. And so I think it's something I'm throwing out the major league sample. 6 games. He got like 8 at-bats. Let's not talk about that. But look at what he did in Sugarland. 294, 342, 587. 16 home runs. And it's a situation where this is what he profiles as in the best case scenario is a batting average around 300. The slugging was there because he got a little more selective. He saw an extra pitch per plate appearance compared to when he was in Corpus Christi. And you see the power numbers. He hits 9 home runs, 57 games in Corpus Christi, 16 in 48 games in Sugarland. And it's because he got a little more selective and he waited to find a pitch he could drive versus just making contact. Defensively, you got questions about, is he good enough to be your everyday guy? I really don't necessarily know as of now that he is, but I think he has enough athleticism where you can use him at DH. You can use him some at first base. I don't know how good he picks, but you can use him some around while he works on some of the defense. The arm is there, but he has to work on the flexibility, the blocking, and then just more experience calling a game. And I think that this pitching staff can really help with that because they're so seasoned and so talented.
So let me ask you this. Let me just kind of break in here because
Okay.
I've noticed a couple of different things you've said consistently. You keep going back to their AA numbers. Can you explain to our listeners, to our viewers, why it's important to look at not just a player's AAA numbers, but AA numbers? Because I believe AA is a little bit more challenging when it comes to batting and hitting because of the pitchers in AA. Is that why you keep alluding back? Because I think the average fan might go, well, but I want to know his AAA numbers. That's the highest level. But AA is really that real barometer. Is that why you keep going back to it?
Yeah. So for prospect people, double A is typically seen as the stuff is better. It may not be as refined, but the stuff is better. That's the primary level where most of the development happens. Triple A, the job of your Triple A team is to be ready to help your big league team. The job of double A is development. And so that's why more and more you see prospects coming from double A straight to the bigs. Look at what the Braves did with Michael Harris. They polished him off in double A straight to the big, skip triple A completely. Triple A, you have an interesting mix of prospects who need a bit more time, and then veterans who are trying to get back to the show, or guys who you have their quad A players, their depth players, you have them to help out in case the big league team has an injury. So double A to me is typically a little bit better idea. Plus, Corpus Christi just happens to be almost perfectly neutral as far as park factors go. It is one of the few parks that is like exactly right at baseline, not slanted towards hitters or pitchers, but rather even. So it ends up being a really good barometer of what a guy can do in a neutral environment there in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, we've interviewed several players and they've talked about that. They've talked about how when they try to get outside of themselves, they're like, the ball doesn't carry at Whataburger Field. And it doesn't. I've been there and it's very hot. It's squelching. I mean, the difference between Sugarland in the summer and Corpus is Corpus has a breeze, but it's still really hot.
Yeah. Sugarland is at least for the Pacific Coast League, Sugarland is one of the more pitcher-friendly. I think it and Sacramento together are like two most pitcher-friendly parks as far as minor league park factors go. And that's the other reason why I really like looking at Corpus Christi numbers and kind of seeing what they did against guys who are also there to learn and get better, the best talent there in Double A.
All right, so somebody in the chat was asking about Joey Luperfido. Is this somebody who's been on your radar for the Houston Astros?
Okay, let me just kind of nerd out for a real quick second about Joey Luperfido. His swing is really pretty. It is a smooth swing, lefty, obviously. Don't be worried about the fact that somebody might go undrafted in 2020 because 2020 was a five-round draft, right? But comes out of Duke. He has the physical build to still get power, and you can kind of see 108 games last year, 12 home runs, 41 extra base hits. But what I love, this is the big thing to me when I'm looking for a prospect and I'm trying to answer the question, is this a guy or is this a dude? 316, 408, 492. That 300, 400, 500 thing, that to me is the cutoff between a guy and a dude. And like Loperfido he defensively, I don't quite know exactly where he plays yet. He can play center field. He can play some in the infield. I don't quite know where he's going to be. That doesn't matter. He can hit. He can hit really well. He's got good baseball instincts. I feel like he would be a really good utility guy who could literally play 7 positions for you at a major league level. That's the kind of instinctual player he is. I'm a big fan of Luperfido, in case you can't tell.
Yeah, he came on the show, and I had the honor of interviewing him, and he shared. Now I'll just share an abbreviated version of the story, but he shared a story at last spring training. Dusty Baker said, "Hey kid, so what position do you play?" He said, "Well, coach, I'm a center fielder." He said, "Go to right field." So he goes to right field, and what does he do? He gets a ball tailing away from him. He lays out, dives, and makes the catch. It's the final out of the inning. He comes back in the dugout, and Dusty Baker says, "Well, GD kid, I guess you are a center fielder or whatever." He said to him, and like the next day, Dusty had all this Italian stuff because he knew his name was Luperfido. So he had like this hat that had Italian on it. He had some Italian kind of, themed gifts for him.
Here's an
And
Olive Garden gift card,
exactly. But Luke Rafido and Kenny Van Dorn, who we recently talked to with Astros Future, said that he sees him making it all the way to AAA this year. I mean, he said he won't break into the major league, but he said he has that potential to rise that quickly in their system.
Yeah, and one of the things you can kind of look at is he did better, smaller sample size, but he did better in high A than in A ball. So, A was like 304, 399, 473, and then all of those numbers improved by like 50 points or more when he went to high A. So that's kind of an indicator that you still haven't found the true talent level or the true challenge for the player. And so if I'm the Astros coming out of spring training, I'm genuinely considering starting him in AA versus starting him back in high A. I know he only got 26 games in high A, but he's also 23 years old. I feel good about what I saw from the glimpses. I'm thinking about sending him straight to AA 2/3 of the year and then looking for maybe August or, possibly late July. We're looking at bumping him up to AAA to see how he handles that one final level of pitching before he goes to the bigs, hopefully in 24.
All right. So looking at, I know that David Hensley has technically already made his debut. I know a lot of people have kind of talked about him being maybe a utility guy, somebody who could play all over the field. But what do you see? What type of player do you see him eventually turning into?
So to me, one of the things that I worry about in a situation like that is he's so huge, right? 6'6", 190. I mean, he's a big guy. And whenever you get those guys, don't get me wrong, they can play in the infield. You've seen O'Neal Cruz at 6'7" playing shortstop. But it's the levers. It ends up being a little bit harder for a really, really big guy like that to consistently do it in the infield at the level that you need to. Played it some in college, San Diego State. He was right fielder to shortstop, things like that. I feel like he has enough of a knowledge base where he can do it as a utility kind of role. I don't want him to be an everyday shortstop, but I think that if you pick a defensive position for him, he's athletic enough and he's skilled enough that he can probably do it at an above average level once you give him 3/4 of a season to settle in. But I do think defensively he can play where you need him to on a fill-in basis.
So, right now we're talking about players that you would bet on, players that you would think about making the Major League roster. Well, since we're doing that, I want to talk about betonline.net. It's your number one source for betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends on every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer. Yes, we call it soccer. In esports, we've got it all at betonline.net. Look, the Netherlands are squaring off against USA and Christian Pulisic. Let's go cheer them on. Let's go bet them on to a victory. So we're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, it's where the game starts. Now, Lindsay, I want to ask you real quick about a couple guys, okay? And you can give us a short synopsis of them. Zach Daniels, Quincy Hamilton, two guys that I think Quincy Hamilton moved quickly last year. Those two guys, do you see them making big moves this year?
Okay, so Zach Daniels first. I love the tools that Zach Daniels has, right? And the question has always been, even going back to when he was in college at Tennessee, the question was, when was the bat going to click, right? And I really think that last year may have been when the bat finally clicked. 282, 371, 522, 23 home runs, 39 extra base hits. I am a little cautious about he needs to bring down the swing and miss. His issue wasn't so much chasing out of the zone. It was missing pitches in the zone. 127 strikeouts in 95 games, but still 22 of 27 bases, has the athleticism, absolutely can play like just tons of tools. Arm is big. It's just once that contact comes together, that's when he can just explode through the system. And I really think you're this close And I think maybe it's just a little bit of we've got to get maybe a little better swing decisions, maybe a little bit of extra out of the swing so he's a little quicker to the zone and can stay in the zone a little longer, cut down some of the whiffs. Quincy Hamilton, fifth rounder out of Wright State. You guys seem to love the Wright State guys. Obviously, Hunter Brown. That was Wayne State. I'm sorry. That was Wayne State. The W states. You guys are big in the W states. Yeah. Okay. So I've got a question about how well Quincy Hamilton's going to be able to handle elite velocity. I don't feel like I've really seen it yet. And even in Corpus Christi, it was a small sample, like 30 games, like a month or so. But the power production never really came in. I want to say the slugging was like below 350. And so it's a question where I think he got a little bit of he was oversold a little bit from college. He was in a really good offensive environment in college. And I think that a little bit of height limitations, a little bit of physical development limitations, you're probably looking at a corner outfielder. Once he can get a little more comfortable with that premium velocity, because he just didn't see it at Wright. It's just not a thing you see in those lower level colleges other than maybe once in a weekend. I think that he has a chance, provided he can just get comfortable with that velo. Double A is the right place to leave him. That's the best place for him to be to get used to it. I feel better about Daniels than I do about Hamilton, but I do think that both of them are that close from just exploding. They've got the physical tools. It's just we've got to get that last little thing to click at the plate.
All right. So I think that Josh, the waiter that said I was H-Town Wheelhouse, is watching right now. So I just want to make sure I'm Eric. That's H-Town Wheelhouse. I just want to clarify that. So anyway, thank you for noticing me, Josh. But there's a lot of minor leaguers that Astros fans probably wouldn't recognize in the street. And once they get up to the Astros, you'll probably recognize them. But who are some other names that Astros fans should look out for in the upcoming years?
So there's a guy right now who is, oh no, I gotta say that I lost. Here we go. Sandro Gaston in the Dominican right now. So 6'3", 210. He is a large man child. Okay. He is a massive young man, part of the 2021 class, and slash line right here. Okay. 319, 420, 688. He had a streak for like 3 days where he hit 4 home runs and 8 RBIs in 4 games.
Wow.
And so it's rare to see a young player and them have the power. So that's something that kind of piques interest right there. Now, I'm a little bit worried about 6'3", 210 at that age. I mean, I think he's 19 or 20 years old. I worry about where he's going to end up. The question is he done with the physical development, or does he have more? And if he has more, you have to manage it, right? You have to make sure that he's not getting too big, because catcher's already tough on your knees. Don't want to go a little too far there, but really kind of like what I saw from Sandro Gaston. And then there's another guy, Omar Diaz. He's played first base, played corner outfield, and no errors at all last year. And so really, really impressive like that. Did a lot of complex league stuff. I think you're going to see him probably go straight to Fayetteville to start the year next year, kind of skip rookie ball, skip complex, but able to play both first base and the outfield. I think he could probably play some third base as well. And the power potential is there. It's just not developed yet. 6'1", 180, got a little bit to come in on, but potential, has the tools, has the traits, has the bat speed. You just have to get him a little more refined, a little more physical development to do that.
Now, what do you think about the ETA of Colin Barber? He is the name that a lot of people, if they're privy to Astros minor leagues, want to know about, because he's got a lot of promise. And Spencer Arrogetti, those two guys, we've actually had several people ask about those two names. What do you think an ETA for either one of those are? Is it 23, 24, 25? Where do you see them? So, and I know that's tough to project.
Yeah, well, it's whenever it's a prep draftee, you always kind of have to wonder, right? Because one, they lost 2020. Barber was drafted 2019 in the 4th round. So right as you're getting him into professional baseball, he gets just about a month of time in 2019, loses 2020 completely. So he's 21 years old and he hasn't gone past high A, right? But in high A, he looked good. 298, 408, 450. Didn't strike out more than once a game, which is a big kind of milestone that I look for in the younger minor leaguers. To me, he feels like a 24 guy simply because he didn't get a full season in 22. He only got 60 games. And so what I imagine they're going to do is he's probably going to, depending on spring training, probably going to spend almost the entire year in AA next year. And then from there, unless he just absolutely destroys, you're looking at 24 opening and challenging for a job at a spring training, opening up in AA or AAA, and then in the bigs by mid-season. But you're kind of working on, you need the power to come in. He hit 7 home runs in 60 games. And then working on, he hasn't had a full season of baseball. I mean, the most games he's played in a year was 63 last year. And that is a big part of becoming a professional baseball player for a lot of prep draftees that we don't think about, is that when you're in college, you're playing, when you're in high school, you're playing, 30 games in a season, and then you have showcases and things like that, but you're not playing 5 or 6 days a week and the physical toll that takes. And
Right.
So that's why, because his max is 63 games, that's why I'm thinking he's a 24 guy.
All right. So I have one question. It's actually going to be a two-parter. What are the chances that we see Correa back in the lineup? When I say Correa, I mean JC Correa. And JP France, how good can he be? And are we going to see him with the Astros at some time in 2023?
Okay, so let's go with JP France first. Don't know if you're going to see him in 23 or not. I'm trying to remember exactly. I want to say he got in 30 or so games, and he kind of went back and forth between starting and relieving. And so that's the question for me, is the role. Are they deciding the role, or is it something where they moved him later to relief because they weren't happy with what he was doing as a starter? The innings wise, he's there, 110 innings, right? He's got plenty of that. The question is, do they want to try to continue to develop him as a starter or just let him eat in the bullpen? I think he should just eat out of the bullpen. That's where I am. And it's not just because the Astros have a million starting pitchers already. I mean, Hunter Brown is your 6th pitcher. Come on. It's the
insane.
rotation is ridiculous. Yeah. And so it's a situation where, in this case, I want to prioritize getting him to the big league level over getting him perfectly developed as a starter before you bring him up. Do something like you saw Hunter Brown. He came up, he started 2 games, he pitched in the bullpen the rest of the year. I think JP France can pitch out of the bullpen probably now. Right. I just don't know if they're going to do it or not.
So, Eric, if I could just get this in here real quick, when we are looking at these different, prospects, when we're looking at the amount of starters that the Astros have, the Astros are famous for piggyback starters. I remember Jake Odorizzi's first rehab start in Sugarland. Hunter Brown came in the 5th inning, and he did a lot of that. Valdez, Javier, all these guys that are up now have done this piggyback starting. Do you see, let's just say Justin Verlander doesn't come back, the Astros employ sort of a hybrid starter, not a starter thing like the Rays have, but I would call it a hybrid starter where you have guys that are going to go, they're going to go 4 or 5, but you're going to have someone come in behind them like a Hunter Brown, like a Brandon Belak, guys like that, JP France, maybe they bring him along later in the season. Are the Astros poised to do that? Because if you can do a hybrid starter like that in 2023, you're saving arms for the postseason.
Yeah, it all comes back to load management, right? And then depth. And something that I'm big on talking about and thinking about and reminding people is depth will always work itself out. Ideally, you want to have 7 or 8 guys identified that can start games for you as you enter a season, knowing that you're probably going to need even more than that. But for me, it's a situation where I don't see a downside to it. And what I would probably do for me is I would want to take a lower level. I wouldn't want to use Hunter Brown as the second half of a piggyback at this point. I feel like he's worthy of a first half. I want to take a younger guy who's a questionable one, and let him be the second half because it's, hey, he carried the load for you. He went 4, he went 5. You just got to come in and finish this out. Don't worry about it. This offense put up 7 runs. You have a 7-3 lead. You don't have to take a clean mound and keep clean sheets to keep us in it. All you have to do is get us through 4 innings with a 4-run lead. So I can see the advantage of doing that versus moving to a 6-man rotation until injuries, fatigue, ineffectiveness make you do a standard rotation anyway. I think that's probably going to be where it goes.
Exactly. And that's where I think Ananoli Paredes, if he's rejuvenated and he can get command of his, because he's got electric stuff. He just, Lindsay, when I watch him pitch, that plant foot is all over the mound. I mean, he does not have one solid divot that was where his foot landed every time. And he's just so erratic, but he's got electricity and he showed promise in 2020. But you know what? We really appreciate you joining the show. And it's always great to talk to you. I'm amazed every time. I'm sitting there going, how does he know all this stuff? How do you retain, like, your brain? Does it open up and do you pour this stuff into it before we come on the air?
My head is actually a TARDIS, and there's just infinite dimensions of memory in there for left-handed swings and curveballs. It's a lot of research, and I watch baseball. I love baseball, and just about all the time in my house, in my office here, like right now in my home office, I have 5 screens between this computer, that computer, TV, and baseball's always on at least 2 of them. And so it's just a matter, it's just I live this, I love it, as you can tell. And when you love it, it's not work, this is fun.
Exactly. And we're definitely going to have you back on because there are some other guys that we need to talk about before spring training. Pedro Leon, everybody wants to know about him. Mm-hmm. But what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this up. Tell everybody where they can find your podcast, where they can find you. And then, after that, we'll wrap up the show and we may do a little, we may keep going for our live audience and for our listening audience. You'll have to tune into YouTube and check out. Oh, we're not going to.
No, we're going to do the one about Jose Abreu.
Oh, okay. So we're going to do a whole separate show. Okay. All right. So Lindsay, tell everybody where they can find you. Sorry.
So my show, Locked On MLB Prospects, is available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. But you can find the show on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You can find me on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. And if you have questions for the mailbag, we do mailbags every single Monday. Send them to me, send them to the show. You can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank y'all for tuning in. This is Eric, the man Huysman, and I am Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chancey. Thank you for tuning in. If you see us at a local restaurant, say hi and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure that after you make Locked On Astros your first listen and the Locked On Prospects your first listen 1A, check out Locked On Sports Today and make them your second listen. That's right. You can do that all in one because you will want to check this out. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. For everybody here, go Stros. Let's go back to back.